select context listener will take. We have two methods: context initialized, context destroyed. Select context listener will have two methods: context initialized, context destroyed. And the event is select context event. Event is select context event. Don't give space between select context and event. It is continuous, right? Okay, and these are three lifecycle listeners that we have. And activation listener is HTTP session activation listener. Okay, which has two methods: session did activate and session will passivate. It is the activation listener of HTTP session. Okay, and the event is the same, HTTP session event. HTTP session activation listener is the activation listener of HTTP session object. It has two methods: session did activate and session will passivate. Okay, and the event is HTTP session event. Okay. Did you write this already? There are two methods: session did activate, session will passivate, and the argument type or the event is HTTP session event. Understood? And the next are lifecycle listeners, attribute listeners. Attributes listeners are there for every entity, every servlet related entity. Like okay. Now, for servlet request, the attribute listener is servlet request attribute listener. Servlet request attribute listener. Servlet request attribute listener has three methods as usual: attribute added, attribute removed, and attribute replaced. Added, removed, and replaced. And the event is servlet request attribute event. Okay. Now the next is HTTP session attribute listener. HTTP session attribute listener contains the same method. Methods are same: attribute added, attribute removed, and attribute replaced. But the event is HTTP session binding event. Understood? The event for HTTP session attribute listener is HTTP session binding event. Okay. Now, select context attribute listener. Select context attribute listener will have all those three methods: attribute added, replace, and remove. But the event is select context attribute event. So the fun of listeners is just implement a corresponding listener class, override all the methods, write the business logic in the corresponding methods, configure the listener class in the web directory. That's it. Listener entities and corresponding methods will be automatically executed. That's what listeners is. And last concept in servlets is headers. Request and response headers. What headers will do, why headers are useful, why they are significant, how will show the difference, that we will discuss. See, request headers are used to change the properties of the request, not attributes or not parameters, change the behavior of the request object. We can customize the behavior of request object or response object through headers. Okay? We can customize the behavior of request object or response object through headers. We can customize request object through request headers, and we can customize response object through response headers. Okay, what are the properties that we can customize? Okay, what are the properties of a request that we can customize? Okay, and those are request headers, and for each and every request header there are a set of possible values. Let's select the language. By default the language will be English. We can make or we can modify the request header in such a way that it should accept French or Spanish. Okay, the maximum length will be certain length, and we can modify the request header as yes, but let's select by default only 100 bytes is acceptable. We can modify that in such a way that it will accept only 50 bytes. Okay, like that we can change or we can customize the behavior of a request object using request header, and we can customize the behavior of response object using response headers. Okay, how we can set a request header means, here is a request. Once we have a request object, there are only some request headers that we can modify through application. There are only some request headers that we can modify through application, servlet applications. Okay, those are character encoding, content length, and content type. But for a response, we can modify any header from the servlet application. For request, we can modify only few headers from the servlet application. We cannot modify all the headers. Okay. In a response, there is a method set header, which will take the header name and header value. But in case of request, we have, in case of request, we don't have a method set header. Okay, just request will have only get header. Request has only get header. Request doesn't have set header. So only few request headers can be modified or updated from the servlet. But in case of response, we can modify any response header. Okay, we can modify any response header. Let us see what are the request headers available. But we can modify these request headers from the HTML page or JSP page. Okay, through HTML or JSP configuration, we can modify the request headers. But in servlet, we can modify only a few request headers. Let us see list of request headers that we have. Just I have downloaded them from internet. These are the list of request headers that we have. Okay, just I have downloaded it from Wikipedia. Okay, accept. Accept means the content types that are accepted. Okay, the content type means what is the format of files that are accepted, or what is the format of data that is accepted. Okay, is it image, or is it a HTML content, or is it a plain text content, or is it a PDF content? Like that, what is the content that is accepted as a request will be specified through accept request header. Understood? And accept char set. Okay, as we told earlier, there are different char sets like UTF-8, UTF-16, ISO. Like that, we have specified char sets. Each and every character set will have some characters. Let's consider like ISO will support some characters, but ISO may or may not support Arabic or Japanese kind of characters. But UTF-8, there are some character sets like we have UTF-8, UTF-16, ISO. Like these are some character sets. So ISO character set will have some list of supported characters. Okay, UTF-8 will have some list of supported characters. UTF-16 will have another list of supported characters. Okay, what is the character set that we need to use? So if we are using ISO means we should enter only ISO supported characters in the fields. Let's consider like ISO doesn't support Arabic, but if you enter Arabic characters in the field and submit to the server will give you exceptions. Okay, so we should use the characters that are specific, okay, to the character set. Understood? And what is the character set that is allowed? Whether it is ISO or UTF-8 or UTF-16, like that, there are several character sets. Understood? A character set will contain a bunch of characters that are allowed, that are valid. Okay, let's consider like we are using the character set as ISO, but we are entering a character which is not as per ISO standards, then it will give a error. So by using character set, we are specifying what are the characters that are supported. Understood? Understood? It will be like that. And accept language. What is the language that is accepted? Okay, some websites may accept only English, some other website should accept German, Spanish, like that. What is the language that is going to be accepted by this web page? Understand? What is the language? In which language the values will come through this request? In which language values will come through this request? Okay? No. Request, see, once request has come to our servlet, it is full-fledged. But we can configure these values in the HTML or JSP page, not through the request object. Just because once the request object reaches the servlet means, okay, it's a final. Okay, it cannot be modified. But response is not committed to the browser. So we can modify the properties of response object. Okay, but not request from the servlet. But this can be set through HTML pages. Okay, and these are not much important. Cache control. Okay, let's consider that there is a HTML page. Okay, let's consider like Google landing page is there. Okay, Google landing page is there. Okay, or Gmail landing page is there. Okay, if you want to access Google landing page, let's consider like we have access to Google landing page for the first time. Okay, first time the Google landing page, it will hit the server and we will get the page, and the browser in the page is displayed. When we try to access the home page of Google again, okay, when we access the page of Google again, okay, what it will do means it will not go to the server, it will get it from the cache. Cache is nothing but a temporary memory. Cache is nothing but a temporary memory. This cache of the browser will be stored in the browser. Okay, in the browser temporary internet files. How it happens is, when we try to access the website, which can be cacheable. Now banking sites, all those sites will not be cacheable. Okay, but some of the websites like Gmail homepage or Google homepage or some static web pages like e-paper of Inalu or some Deccan Chronicle paper, they can be cached. So what they will do means, okay, rather than hitting the server again and again, okay, that web page will be cached in the browser in temporary internet files. Let's consider like for the first time we are accessing the Google home page from the browser. For the first time we are accessing the Google home page. Okay, what it will do is it will hit the Google server. Okay, the Google server will deploy some response. Okay, and the response will be displayed in the browser. Okay, and for the second time, okay, for the second time when we try to access the Google home page, the control will not go to the Google server. Okay, the Google home page will be cached inside the browser. Will be cached inside the browser. So from the browser temporary internet files itself, it will fetch the Google home page. Okay, it will not again go for the server. So the traffic between the browser and server will be decreased. If it is the same page that is displayed, why to go again back to the server and increase the traffic of server? Understood? Will it change? Will that page change from time to time? Google homepage will not change from time to time, or Gmail landing page will not change from time to time. It will be the same. If it is the same and there is no dynamic content, why to get it again and again from the browser? Sorry, again and again from the server. For the first time, you will get the response from the server, and for the second time onwards, the caching value or the caching page will be displayed. Request again it will not be sent to the server. Okay, the request will be sent to the caching page, and the caching page response will be displayed. Understood? Understood how it will be? So whether the cache should be enabled or not will be specified by this cache control. Okay, for banking websites or insurance websites where most of the data is dynamic, we need to go for we need to disable the cache. Okay, how we can disable the cache means we should set the header. Okay, header name as cache control and the header value as the header name will be cache control, header value will be no cache. So that means cache will not be there for this request. Each and every new request should submit the browser or should hit the server. Understood? Like that it will be. And cookies. Okay? Whether we need to enable cookies or not, or what are the cookies available. Okay? As we told earlier while discussing cookies, from the servlet, cookies will be transferred to the browser in form of response headers. From the browser, cookies will be transferred back to the server in form of request headers. Okay? The name of the request header is cookie, and the value of request header will be, okay, cookie name equal to cookie value, semicolon. Cookie name equal to cookie value, semicolon. Okay? It will be like that. Understood? Okay? Content length. Okay? What is the maximum length of the content that should be allowed in the request object? Okay? What is the maximum length of the content that should be allowed in the request object? Okay? How many bytes of content should be allowed in the request object? Or how many bytes of content that is allowed in the request, in the HTTP request, will be specified through content length. Okay? Understood? And content type. What is the type of data that we need to send through the request? Okay? A Word document or a PDF, okay, like that. What is the type of content, okay, that we send to the server? Okay, where it is. Content type will specify the content type will specify the type of data that is sent to the that is sent through the request body. Okay, the content type will specify, okay, the type of data that is sent through the request body. The type of data that is sent through the request body or response body is said to be a MIME type. Okay, a MIME type is very important. Okay. The type of data that is sent through the request body or response body is said to be the MIME type. MIME, MIME. The type of data that is sent through request body or response body is said to be a MIME type. MIME, MIME. Okay? What is MIME means? Multi-purpose Internet Mail Extension. Multi-purpose Internet Mail Extension. Multi-purpose Internet Mail Extension. Actually, earlier MIME types were developed only for mailing systems. When we are sending a mail, okay, what is the data, what is the type of data that is attached to the mail? Will be specified as MIME type, whether it is a PDF document or image or GIF, like that. Okay? But later on, MIME types were implemented even for HTML requests. Okay? That's why it is called as multi-purpose Internet Mailing Extension. Just because earlier, in initial days, MIME types were used only for mailing systems. But later on, MIME types were implemented even for HTTP requests and HTTP responses. Okay? MIME type will specify the type of data that is sent through the request body or response body. Okay? MIME type, the content type value is the MIME type. Okay? For example, application slash ms word. Okay, we'll specify that the document that we are going to send from browser to server is a Word document. Okay, if it is application slash GIF, then we are going to send a GIF file. Okay, like that. Understood? Now, we expect date, these are not that much important. Range. This pragma, okay, this pragma will be used by the older browsers to specify the cache management properties. Some of the older browsers will be still using pragma for cache management properties. Okay, the latest browsers will use the cache control property, this property, to specify the cache properties, whether the cache should be enabled or not. If enabled, what should be the size? Okay, that cache control properties will be specified through cache-fn control request header in the latest browsers. But in the earlier browsers, okay, this was set through pragma. So we don't know whether the client will use older browser or latest browser. So if you want to disable the cache in the request, we should make pragma as no cache as well as cache control as no cache. Understood? Why? Because we cannot expect that the user should use the latest browser. The user may use latest browser or even old browser, old version of the browser. Understood? So you want to disable cache, we need to set pragma as no cache as well as another request header. Okay, another request header, cache control as no cache. This should be set to no cache as well as pragma also should be set to no cache. Understood? Just because we don't know which browser the user runs the application. In which browser the user runs the application. If the user runs in IE5 or IE6, then we should use the pragma. Pragma is the setting to disable the cache. Understood? Understood? If it is the latest browser, then we should use cache control. But we don't know which browser is used by the user. The same application can be executed by one user in another browser, one user in some browser, by another user in some other browser. So we should make both the settings, cache control as well as pragma, to no cache. Okay? If you want to disable the cache. Understood? That's what the request headers are. Okay? And in the same way, we can have, but from the HTTP servlet, for request we can set only two headers: content type request dot. We can set only character encoding. We can set like this. UDF 8. So we have set the character encoding as UDF 8. What is the character encoding? What is the corresponding request header is? Accept char set. Okay, if you set the character encoding in the request object, then accept char set request header will be modified. Understood? Okay, and I think, are there any other values that we can set? Okay, the only what we call request header that we can change through request object is character encoding. So there are only two setters, set attribute and set character encoding. Okay, the only request header that we can change through servlet request object is character encoding. And what is the corresponding request header name? Accept char set. Okay, this is the only request header that we can send through HTTP servlet request object. The remaining headers should be updated in the HTML or JSP page itself. Question? Now, let me see the response headers. You just try to have the information why a request header uses, and at least remember 5 to 6 request headers. Some of the interviewers will be asking what are the available request headers. Just try to remember 5 or 6 request headers and their usage. Okay? The frequently used are accept char set, encoding, as well as content length, cache control, cookie. Like this, 5 or 6 request headers are there which will be frequently used. Just remember those 5 or 6 request headers and what they will do. Okay? That's it. Okay? That is enough. And let me see the response headers. Response headers can be set through the application. But in case of request, we can see the headers. What are the request headers available? Say enumeration, right? Otherwise, just let me go for enumeration. Okay, header names, and let me give what has next elements, sorry, has more elements. Okay, just let me print the header name. Next element. Okay. name colon header value. You want to get the header value, go for request dot get header. Understood what we have done? Okay, we have executed request dot get header names. Okay, which will give you all the headers available in the request object. Okay, and the names of the headers, and we are iterating the names of the headers, and what we are getting is through request dot get header method we are passing the name of the header and we are getting the value of that header. Understood? Understood? So let me try to execute this application. So this is the console. These are the request headers available. What is the host? What is the agent? Firefox is the browser. What is the accepted languages? These are HTML, XHTML, XML. All those content types are allowed. What is the language? US. And encoding. Okay, and what is the URL that has triggered this request? Okay, connection, content type. Okay, just it is an encoded URL. Okay, and what is the length of the content? Okay, that's how. Okay, that's how it will be. Okay, that's how the request headers will be. Okay, if you want to change them in the HTML page. Okay, and yes, this will give you the list of request headers. The same way, let me get the list of response headers. List of response headers. Okay, let me the response set header is there, but is there a get header method? Why there is no get header method? How will get the response headers? I'm not sure. I'll let you know later on. Okay, how to get the response headers, but we can modify the headers of a response. Let's consider like the response set header. Okay. Otherwise, let me see the list of response headers. Where it is. Otherwise, let me go for response header which is content type. Okay, let me set the response header content type as application/ms word. Okay, now whatever the response that is displayed, it will be displayed in word format. Now let me try to re-execute the application. So it will display. Let me refresh the browser. Let me enter a username and a password. Submit. So whatever the content that is displayed, it is displayed in a word format. Understand? That's how the response headers are primarily used. Response headers are changing the properties of the response object. By default, response object will be displayed in the information of the response will be displayed in the browser. Now I am displaying the response information in a Word document. Understood? That's how the response headers or request headers will be useful. Just to change the default properties of a response or to customize the response. Now we have customized the response in such a way that the response is displayed in a Word document. We can tell that, let's consider like if it is a bank statement and all, response will be displayed in a PDF document or Excel document. So how they will be displayed means just we modify the content type. That means we are customizing the response in such a way that by default the response will be displayed in a HTML document. Rather than displaying the response in a HTML document, we are displaying that in a new Word document or new PDF document. So that you have to customize the request or response, we go for headers. And we can easily set the header in the response object using response dot set header. But there is no set header method in request. There is a set header method in response where we can set the response header. Understood? That's how it will be. That's how the headers will make the difference. Just try to get the list of request headers and response headers. Try to remember at least 5 important request and response headers. That is enough. And you need to know how to set the request headers and how to set the response headers. Your task for tomorrow is just search in Google how to set request headers and response headers in a HTML page. Okay, how to set request headers and response headers in a HTML page. Okay, try that, practice that, and let me know. Okay, that's it. This will complete the servlets. In the next session, we'll start up with JSP. Next session will be Monday morning, as I am leaving to Bangalore for some personal work. Okay.